I found 10 war movies that completely bombed at the box office. One of them lost so much money it nearly shut down the studio. Another was so disturbing it was banned in some countries. And at least 2 of these movies you've probably never even heard of. Let's count down the war films that flopped the hardest and see which one deserves a second chance. Casualties of War is one of those movies that never stood a chance with the public, no matter how hard it tries. It's based on a true story, the Hill 192 incident, a notorious crime from the Vietnam War. Brian De Palma tried to make this movie as soon as he read about it, but with the war still on, there was no way anyone in Hollywood was going to touch it. Even after the war, it took a decade and the success of movies like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket before the studio gave De Palma the go-ahead. The story is dark and uncomfortable. An American squad kidnaps and kills a young Vietnamese woman, and the fallout splits the soldiers apart. Not exactly the kind of movie that gets crowds running to the theater. De Palma screened it for Spielberg, who walked out and just said, "You'll be thinking about this for a week." That's about right. Even Tarantino still calls it the best Vietnam War film ever made. He says there's a scene early in the movie that shaped the way he wrote Reservoir Dogs. But in the end, none of that helped at the box office. Casualties of War made just over $18 million on a $22 million budget. The subject matter was too heavy, and the movie more or less vanished. Most people never heard of this one, never saw it, and you can't blame them. The movie barely made a ripple when it came out. It's about an American intel squad that stumbles on a German unit ready to give up, and what happens when both sides try to arrange a surrender. It's tense, strange, and heartbreaking. There's one thing that makes it worth bringing up. When Spielberg was casting Saving Private Ryan, all the actors auditioned with scenes from this movie. That's how much the story got under the skin of the people who really care about war films. A midnight clear shot in Utah in the coldest winter in 83 years, and then arrived in LA right as the Rodney King riots broke out. That didn't help anything. Even though the acting is phenomenal and the ending hits like a gut punch, the film barely pulled in $1.5 million. Critics loved it, but almost no one saw it. Meanwhile, Saving Private Ryan went on to become the biggest World War II movie ever. Come and See isn't just a war movie, it's a punch to the gut. You sit through this and you come out changed. Elem Klimov tells the story of a Belarusian kid who joins the partisans in World War II. At 12 years old, he sees more horror than most people see in a lifetime. You can watch this kid age in real time because of all the extreme stuff he goes through. This movie shows you what war does to the people who survive, if you can even call it surviving. The Nazis' atrocities aren't softened or romanticized here. Klimov worked with Alice Adamovich, who lived through these events as a kid, so the film feels realistic in a harrowing sort of way. No professional actors, shot right where the horrors actually happened. The result is the most honest, devastating depiction of World War II I've ever seen. If you want to know what war does to people, you can't find anything more powerful. No Hollywood movie comes close. On to something lighter now. Kelly's Heroes isn't interested in teaching history, it's just here to have fun. This is a World War II caper with Clint Eastwood leading a squad of American soldiers on a wild mission to steal Nazi gold. You get Telly Savalas and Donald Sutherland along for the ride, with Sutherland basically inventing the hippie tank commander. The tanks are real though, they filmed in Yugoslavia where the army still had a stash of Sherman tanks just sitting around. The tone is all over the place, but that's what gives the movie its charm. There's something about the way Sutherland just floats through the film like he's in a different movie that works. But if you're hoping for deep character development, good luck. MGM cut a bunch of scenes that would have given the story more weight. Even Eastwood was frustrated. He said the deleted footage would have made the movie better and more human. And because of all the studio meddling, Kelly's Heroes didn't even break even at the box office. A cult classic now, but it deserved more. Hamburger Hill tells the story of the brutal 10-day fight for Dong Op Bia Mountain in 1969. This was supposed to be a quick mission, but it turned into a bloodbath. 10 separate assaults, 72 Americans dead, hundreds wounded. What you get here is a movie that doesn't shy away from the details, the numbers, or the suffering. John Irvin directs with an eye for accuracy, everything from ranks to accents to body counts. This movie got lost in the shuffle, mostly because it came out after Platoon and Full Metal Jacket. Paramount dragged their feet on releasing it, just waiting to see if Vietnam was a hot topic at the box office. Kubrick even managed to push his own movie out first. Over time, Hamburger Hill's harrowing vibe has earned it more respect. Critics give it a perfect score now, but it never made its money back. Sometimes timing really is everything. Gallipoli stands as one of the most realistic World War I films ever made. Peter Weir directs it with a kind of blunt honesty that you don't see often. The story follows two young men from Australia who think war promises some kind of adventure. They leave home excited, looking for meaning, but by the time they reach Gallipoli, the truth hits. These kids are nothing more than cannon fodder. The filmmakers did their homework here. Peter Weir's crew researched the Australian Army Corps history down to the smallest details. They filmed on location in South Australia and Egypt, matching the real journey the troops made. You see them at the pyramids just like the soldiers did in 1915. They build trenches and battlefield sets that copy the original Gallipoli terrain using topographical maps and even World War I photos. Uniforms and gear match the time period, with Australian military historians making sure every slouch hat and Lee Enfield rifle is right. Surviving veterans gave input on the slang, the routines, even the kind of humor Aussie troops used to keep their spirits up in the trenches. Gallipoli does take some dramatic license, especially with the British command, and it leans into the Australian legend, but it always grounds itself in real events. It's a tragic film, but that's what makes it worth watching. Operation Finale, with a budget in the $20 to $24 million range, ended up earning just $17 million worldwide. That's rough for a movie with this kind of story. Oscar Isaac, Ben Kingsley, Nick Kroll, they all signed on to tell the true story of how Mossad agents tracked down Adolf Eichmann, one of the main architects of the Holocaust, hiding out in Argentina. The real 1960 Mossad mission serves as the blueprint for this thriller. Some of the best moments come from the tension between the agents, how to find Eichmann, how to extract him, and what justice means after an atrocity like the Holocaust. The film pulls from the real history, but it takes liberties with the details. A lot of critics call it more of a heist movie than a straight spy drama, and it definitely plays fast and loose with the facts. Still, what sets Operation Finale apart is the moral ambiguity that sits under everything. It's not just about catching a fugitive, it's about what comes next. What justice really looks like, and whether it's worth the time and risk to pursue someone decades after their crimes. Jarhead adapts Anthony Swofford's memoir about serving as a U.S. Marine. Sam Mendes directs, Jake Gyllenhaal stars, and the movie comes with a $72 million budget. The box office reached $97 million, not a disaster, but nowhere near a hit, especially for a war film with this kind of pedigree. Jarhead takes a different route. It skips the usual war movie action and focuses instead on what happens when soldiers wait around with nothing to do. Endless boredom, isolation, training for combat that never arrives. The movie throws the audience into that frustration and confusion. The first 20 minutes hit especially hard. The buildup feels real, the tension works. But when the soldiers deploy, there's almost nothing for them to do. No big action set pieces, just more waiting. Some people hate that, and no wonder the movie flopped at the box office. But most actual Marines say the film nails the reality. Most of the complaints come from civilians who expect non-stop combat. The 13th Warrior goes down as one of the costliest disasters in war movie history. It's an adaptation of Michael Crichton's Eaters of the Dead, with Antonio Banderas starring as a court poet from Baghdad sent out to Scandinavia. His job changes fast. Instead of poetry and diplomacy, he gets dragged into a Norse war against cannibalistic barbarians. The film cost up to $160 million to make. The box office was just $61 million. It bombed, no question, almost tanked the studio, but there's more to the story. John McTiernan directed, but test screenings went so badly that Michael Crichton, the author, stepped in to reshoot big chunks of the movie. That production mess delayed the release for almost 2 years, and Disney dumped it at the end of August 1999, long after anyone cared. For all its problems, the 13th Warrior deserves credit for how it handles Viking culture and medieval combat. Critics hated it when it came out, but over time people recognized it as a decent medieval war epic. Johnny Got His Gun comes from Dalton Trumbo's own 1939 novel, inspired by real cases of extreme World War I combat injuries, like a British major who survived as a quadruple amputee. Critics and historians agree the film's harrowing realism has a basis in real war medical history. Every injury, every hospital detail matches what actually happened on the battlefields a century ago. The story follows Joe Bonham, a young man who joins the army out of a sense of duty like so many others. A shell lands near him on patrol and he wakes up in a hospital, alive but with no arms, no legs, and no face. The military sees him as brain dead, but he's fully conscious, trapped inside his own body, fighting to find some way to communicate. Trumbo doesn't look for any easy answers here. Joe's inner monologue brings the audience inside his mind, shows the true price of war, not just for those who die, but for those who survive with catastrophic wounds. There's no political speech, no call to action, just the story of one man who pays the ultimate price for nothing. It's a very tough-to-watch movie, but important one, of course, if you can handle it.